welcome in to two countries, two Americas, all sports podcast. I am your co-host Gustavo Camargo Tomazeli, live from Americana, São Paulo, Brazil, and I'm doing the opening today because my co-host Nicholas Hill, he was kind of skeptical beyond solo shot, so I took this shot. But how's it going, Nick, on this Wednesday afternoon?
Oh, it's going well, guys. It's going well. Just like adjusting to my new job schedule. I work overnight now, so been asleep all day actually. So I just kind of woke up in the last hour um, to a lot of the new news that's been coming out today.
Yeah, a lot of things happening in the NFL, especially free agency, and you know, and we're gonna get to that in American topics, but it's interesting our opening topic in terms of fan base and sports, right, Nick?
Right, right. And I wanted to ask this because of the Deshaun Watson situation. Is where I kind of thought about doing this the other day. Um, because if you've been following the reaction to Deshaun Watson being named a Cleveland Brown, getting a 5-year, $230 million contract. There's a lot of people who were Browns friends that are fan free agents now. They don't want to support a franchise that signs a guy with all the allegations that Deshaun Watson has, even if the legal system didn't find him guilty. Uh, and it just kind of made me thought, when is it acceptable to change fan bases? Because there's some people who I feel like would say, you always have the right to change it, right? Because these fan bases are these teams are not beholden to you in terms of whatever value they do or don't provide. If you don't enjoy being a part of a fan base, um, then you shouldn't be a part of it, especially if you feel like they're doing things that go against your morals, like in the case of Deshaun Watson for many people. There's some people who are, and who are furious with those people who are like, why would you abandon the team? There's still a whole other team of guys who didn't do anything wrong, so you're going to abandon the team over one person. It's a really interesting discussion, and I just wanted to kind of start off talking about this in the context of the Deshaun Watson situation before we dive into the actual football uh, element of it.
I mean, I feel like it's interesting because I feel like in America it's taking more seriously than in Brazil because I feel like in Brazil I never seen fans ditching their clubs because their main player was involved in some sort of a trouble with the just with with the law. You know, a few cases that I remember, you know, uh, Edmundo, a really big uh, uh, soccer player in the 90s. He was involved in a car accident that he was found guilty of because he was dying. I think he was even drunk or driving reckless, and he caused the death of two people. But people still idolize him. People still consider him a really important soccer player, and even not even a needle was moved in terms of supporting Vasco da Gama, his team at the time, or Palmeiras, the team he played in the past, or ended up playing ended up playing later. So I feel like I don't know. In Brazil, I feel like fans don't. And it's even funny in Brazil. Some fan it's even a joke when Flamengo, the biggest club in Brazil, was not was not winning title, was not getting too much success. Then fans were complaining the team was made up of the good guys. There was like a viral audio of a fan complaining that he wants bad boys. Where is my bad boy players? Where is my players who go to favelas, who go to who troublemakers? Where is my troublemakers? Where is the players who is bad boys but can play? That was the main complaint back. I feel like 4 or 5 years ago. Now Flamengo is winning again with you know good guys kind of player, not any bad boys. But I feel like that's very volatile. Volatile.
Yeah, and that's really interesting because I feel like in America there's so much that goes into this. I mean, I think one thing is the political climate, right? We've had the Me Too movement now for a couple of years. And I think that has made a lot of people, be a hard line on situations like this. Like I think about like Kobe, right? Like Kobe had a somewhat similar situation to this. Ben Roethlisberger had a somewhat similar situation to this. But obviously not with 22 people like Deshaun Watson, but with 1 to 2 people in each of those cases. And it's interesting because both of those athletes ended up being beloved by their fan bases. Kobe now obviously after his passing is immortalized as one of the best NBA players of all time, and is seen as a role model in many cases, even though he had a similar situation. Michael Vick, he was allowed to come back into the NFL after dogfighting and serving a time in prison for 18 months. And people, I think, overall look back at him fondly. I mean, there's some people obviously who can't get past the dogfighting situation, but there's a lot of people who would think about him as like, is this innovative QB? It,
And I feel like the return. You mentioned those cases, especially Michael Vick, who was indicted, went to jail, and came back. You know, I think the most iconic case in Brazil, I think, in this matter was the goalkeeper Bruno. Back in 2010, he was in the peak of his career, the starting goalkeeper for Flamengo. So the starting, one of the main players of the biggest soccer team in Brazil. He was even to be considered uh, to be called to the national team. He was, some even panelists saying that he was probably going to be the goalkeeper in the 2014 World Cup in Brazil. But then uh, his mistress disappeared, and then later that year found out that he allegedly he ordered his buddies, his guards, to get rid of her. And then, according to the prosecution, his guards killed her and gave her body to the dogs to eat. So that was a despicable crime. And of course, he went to trial, got arrested. He was arrested. He was convicted, but now he's on parole. So I think some teams went got interested in him. I remember a team from the north, very very far away, kind of like I think the first team was in Minas Gerais, his home state. Went kind of like uh, uh, he went to play for this team, but the backlash was brutal. A lot of sponsors quit the team, and then he played a couple of games, and then he left. So I feel like the sponsors play a big role in this. I feel like because when the sponsors pressure front office, then things get serious, I believe.
oh, absolutely. And I'm very curious to see how the other Browns players kind of congeal with Deshaun Watson. Do they all, are they all fine with it? Because obviously from a football perspective, Deshaun Watson is an elite quarterback. Like he has the potential to be a top 5 quarterback in the league. But do they have issues with the morality? Do they believe that he deserves that second chance? Um, I think the most modern comparison, and maybe it's not apples to apples on this. Kyle Larson in NASCAR. Remember, Kyle Larson 2 years ago, he gets caught on an iRacing stream saying the N word and gets suspended from NASCAR for the entire season. He gets to come back last year and he's a champion, and now he's like one of the most popular drivers in the league, and no one really even talks about the fact that Kyle Larson got caught on camera saying the N word anymore. I mean, to me, if Deshaun Watson comes out and just balls and has Cleveland back in the playoffs, has them going for a Super Bowl. I mean, you gotta remember, this is the Cleveland Browns we're talking about. Um, I mean, they haven't tasted like any success. They have one playoff win in the last 25 years, at least ever since the new Cleveland Browns started in 1999. I'd be very curious to see if some of the people who are saying today they're not a Browns fan anymore are going to come back if Deshaun Watson leads the Cleveland Browns to the promised land. It's it's a double-edged sword, right? Because if it works, then no one's going to be talking about this in 2 years. Like they didn't talk about it with COVID, like they didn't talk about it with Ben Roethlisberger. People will make jokes about you forever, of course. But I mean, the name of the game is to win championships, and let's be honest, some of these athletes aren't exactly Disney protagonists. A lot of them are going to have issues. I mean, I just think about Tyreek Hill today, who got a massive, who got traded to the Dolphins. I mean, this dude beat up his pregnant girlfriend in college, and yet no one brings that up when he
One,
with
one
his
thing that I
success.
still, one thing that I still find strange in this Deshaun Watson case is that none of this 22 victims came forward in an interview. I feel like you know at
Okay,
this
I'll say
point.
I'll say this. Like, I understand why they wouldn't. Like, it's especially with the toxicity of social media and just in general, right? Because women deal. It's really hard for women to come forward in sexual assault cases.
But wouldn't you even do anonymously like a interview with a blurry voice and blurry face? At least give some description of it.
I mean,
Even not,
even that's risky because I mean they could like decipher from the context of what they're talking about of who you possibly are. I mean, uh, I I mean the only thing that's really suspicious to me is that one lawyer is representing all of them, right? That's the thing that's suspicious to me.
yeah.
I'm not doubting the fact that any of this actually happened because it probably did. I mean, because let's be honest, there's a lot of people who are scumbags, and it doesn't shock me that it doesn't. No one surprises me with their scumminess. It's but I understand why none of them would come up publicly because you've seen sports fans, right? You've especially seen NFL and football fans. It's a lot of them are toxic, especially on the internet. And I can only imagine, if going through a traumatizing experience where you were sexually harassed or assaulted, and then you come out and talk about it, and people make all of these claims and jokes. I was thinking about a couple of weeks ago, the Auburn head coach, Brian Harsin, was alleged to have an affair with one of his assistants. And people were just bombarding her with all kinds of stuff. Even though, I mean, she really wouldn't have done that much in the wrong outside of, sleeping with a married man. At least if that were to be true. I don't know if that is true. But, women just naturally, they get more of, they get more of the backlash just because our society um, puts more responsibility on them.
But I'll say this, one also case that was very interesting was the Palmeiras striker Dudu. I mean, he was on the top of his game, and then he had a messy separation that ended up being a divorce, and then his ex-wife accused him of sexual assault and beating. But turns out he was doing the beating. She was beating him. With there was footage of it. So there was a lot of accusations thrown at him, but then no apologies offered when there was shown that he was the victim of assault, uh not Dudu's wife. And that's why it's premature to accuse anybody. And Palmeiras, to Palmeiras' credit, did not suspend it or do any action against him until he was proven guilty or there was even any proof of it. Though it turns out there was none.
Yeah, and obviously you always got to give people the right to be proven innocent, and I think that's another problematic thing too. I've seen on Deshaun Watson's end is some people will automatically like he's guilty in their minds whether he's proven guilty or not, and you can complain all you want about the legal system not indicting him, but he wasn't indicted. So since he wasn't indicted, he's fair game. If people to want to hire him, you know. So it makes I think that part of it, at least for Deshaun Watson, bothers me as well. Like because I don't want to get in too much hot water uh, down this road, but I think we should just all remember what our legal standard is: innocent until proven guilty. I think we shouldn't just automatically believe in everything we hear. We need to hear the evidence. And if someone isn't convicted, then I think they have the right to make money off of their talents. And we'll debate whether or not 230, if Deshaun Watson's worth the highest QB contract in the league. But um, yeah, I mean, it's just at least in the U.S. that's the way it should work. And I understand that people have all kinds of emotions and feelings on that topic, and all of them are valid because a lot of people have dealt with those situations. Yeah, it's just a really messy situation. And I think just on the question of when it's acceptable to just abandon him, I think no one should be the gatekeeper. Like you should determine whether or not you like something. Like me, like there's certain things that I used to love that I don't love anymore, so I don't watch them, or I didn't love them, stopped liking them, then like them again, kind of like with NASCAR. Um, you should do what makes you happy. If something doesn't excite you, if something disgusts you, then don't do it. Don't watch it. It's okay to change an opinion on something or someone. There's people that I used to watch who after seeing some stuff that they did or talked about, I can't watch anymore just because I don't I just don't think they contribute positively to my life experience anymore. Um, so if you were a Cleveland Browns fan and you can't stomach the thought of rooting on for a guy that you think committed sexual assault, yeah, I think you should go find a different team just because that's gonna make you not feel happy as long as he's there. Um, and I'm just gonna be curious what the ultimate amount of people that's going to leave the Cleveland Browns fan base over this.
Oh, definitely. I feel like, it's fair if you don't want to, get involved or, support a team that does, or hire people that go against your values. But I don't know. I feel like in Brazil, it's really, really rare to see fans turning the back against their teams if they got a player who did something, you know, maybe only Bruno's case. That's the only case that I remember that was backlash and not even by the fans of their teams, was by media pundits and and on social media. But when you actually when you know on the practice, the locals were taking pictures with Bruno, were celebrating him. So there's a discrepancy between the social media and the real world. That's the thing in Brazil. I feel like here, I don't see fans questioning, teams, getting players that have problems with the law.
Yeah, and that'd be because obviously I'm not in Cleveland, Ohio. I would love to go walk around Cleveland and just kind of ask like 100 random people, "Hey, what's your thoughts on Deshaun Watson coming to the Cleveland Browns?" I feel like that would be a much more accurate representation of what the actual response is than what we see on the internet. Because obviously with Twitter and Reddit and places like that, those people are more likely to have the types of people who would ditch the team over this situation. Um, and obviously they have every right to do that. But I've got a feeling that in just the real world, that's not the case. I think there's a lot, I still believe that their stadium is going to be filled to the brim next year when Deshaun Watson comes out for the first time, assuming that he's not suspended. Um, and we'll see how that works. Do you have any last comments on this topic?
Yeah, we're gonna have to wait and see in September when the Browns play on their first home game how the fans react.
Absolutely. So I want to transition kind of just into to the football aspect of this because I wanted to kind of just talk about the off the field first, because obviously there's a lot of drama around Deshaun Watson. But now I kind of move to the football aspect. So not ignoring what he has potentially done. Deshaun Watson is a top five, top 10 talent in the league as a quarterback. And, I think with someone that has the allegations that he has, you have to have a certain level of talent for a team to look at you. Kind of look how they treated Colin Kaepernick. If he were the level of Deshaun Watson, he would still be playing in the NFL, regardless of the politics. Kind of like a LeBron James on the other side. Like LeBron James is a very controversial figure. A lot of people dislike him because of his politics, but he obviously still has a job in the NBA because he's one of the best players of all time. Deshaun Watson, I don't know if he's like a LeBron level QB. I don't know if he's going to be like the greatest ever, but I think he's certainly going to be one of the. I think he has to be one of the best dual threat QBs of all time. Um, Obviously, when you take a look at Deshaun Watson, over the years he has developed so much as a pocket passer. Like he was lighting it up in Houston, especially when he had DeAndre Hopkins. But even when he lost Hopkins, the year after he threw for 5,100 yards on a 4-win team. And some people are going to knock him for saying, "Oh well, he can't lead this team to wins." But quarterback's only one player on a team full of 53 guys. Like Deshaun Watson was the only reason why the Houston Texans were competitive in any of their games that season. Like the Houston Texans were horrible otherwise. And if you actually give him supports, I think Deshaun Watson can lead a team to a championship. And in Cleveland, he might have that support. Just think about, start your backfield, right? You got Nick Chubb, you got Kareem Hunt, two amazing running backs. Deshaun Watson's going to be able to do some option with them. He's going to be able to take a little bit of load off Deshaun Watson, which you got to think about it. In Houston, Deshaun Watson never had running backs like this. Deshaun Watson has much better RB support now than he's ever had. And then you take a look at the fact they just signed Amari Cooper. That is the best receiver he's had since DeAndre Hopkins. I don't think Cooper is a Hopkins, but I think he's like a step or two below that. But he's still going to really enhance Watson. But then also, when you take a look at the defense, I think this is one of the best defenses he's ever had. So support with him. He obviously you got Myles Garrett. You have a guy like Greg Newsome who's really taken off. The only thing that I think stops from me saying that this team is a certified Super Bowl contender is the fact that the AFC is loaded.
The AFC North is loaded. Not
Oh,
you have
yeah.
to go that far. You have the Cincinnati Bengals, the current AFC champions, the Baltimore Ravens. I feel like Lamar Jackson is still, I think, a viable talent. I think they're gonna go back, and Pittsburgh Steelers. Again, they never had a losing season. Under Mike Tomlin.
Yeah, obviously they got Mitch Trubisky, as a quarterback next year, so it's going to be very interesting to see how that works. I think Trubisky has some talent, but I never understood him as a number 2 pick in the first place a couple of years ago. So it's going to be interesting to see how that evolves for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But yeah, the Ravens, I think they're going to be a lot better next year. They should finally have their running backs again, because they all got injured last year, and Lamar Jackson is still a special talent. And then we know what the Bengals are doing. And the Bengals, in this offseason, they've rebuilt their offensive line. One of their key signers was Leal Collins from the Cowboys. So Joe Burrow should actually be able to stand in the pocket next year, which makes him so much more dangerous. Like Joe Burrow with protection is going to be a scary, scary man for the rest of the AFC. I don't think the Cleveland Browns are going to be division champions next year. I think they're certainly going to have a shot at the wild card. But I think Deshaun Watson, if he isn't suspended, is going to put up some pretty big numbers in Cleveland. And again, it kind of goes back to what I was saying. If he goes off next year and really is exciting to watch, I think a lot will be forgiven.
AFC North is going to be about who can protect their quarterback better, because I feel like that's going to be the main issue with the Bengals. That was Deshaun Watson main issue in Houston. So we'll see who quarterback can rise up and have a better season, and especially who's going to be better protected.
Yeah, it's going to be a really exciting division. Like between this and the AFC West, it's going to be nuts. Think about it. Which division has the better QB room? I probably would say the AFC West, between Mahomes, Wilson, Carr, and Herbert in the West, and then now in the North you have Watson, Burrow, Jackson, and I guess Trubisky. So I guess the West is better by default, but the North is also going to be insane. Like there's going to be so many good division matchups next year in the AFC. Um, and then the thing with the AFC East, you still got Allen and Jones over there. And speaking of the AFC East, the blockbuster trade of today, Tyreek Hill to the Dolphins. I mean, I was asleep when this happened, so I woke up and I saw that. I didn't even know Tyreek Hill was even being considered to trade uh, as a trading option. And then now he's a Miami Dolphin. Going to be playing with Tua Tagovailoa. I'll say this: they've got some speed on that team.
We got the best.
Between Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. The only thing is, can Tua Tagovailoa take advantage of that? The college Tua absolutely could have, because college Tua was able to throw the ball downfield, stretch it vertically, and everything. The NFL Tua has not been the same case. Like he's looked very jittery. Like I saw him in person play against the Titans. Did not look very good. He never looked like he was able to establish himself in the pocket, and I just don't know how much this is truly going to help him. And I think one of the things too that's been underrated about Tyreek Hill is he's always played with Travis Kelce, and Travis Kelce is the best tight end in the league, maybe one of the best tight ends of all time. And just the attention that he commands frees up Tyreek Hill because you can't really double Tyreek Hill. And I know he has Mike Gesicki here on the Dolphins, and Mike Gesicki is no Travis Kelce. And I just don't think he's going to be anywhere close to as good in Miami as it was in Kansas City. Plus, he's getting a lot older, so that's I think going to be another factor.
And I feel like Kansas City is having to get rid of some key players because of Mahomes' contract. That was inevitable, and maybe he can connect with Tua Tagovailoa. Who knows? He's an experienced receiver. Maybe he'll help Tua in Miami.
Oh, absolutely. It's a it's I still think they're going to be the third best team in the AFC. It's like that. They're not going to compete with the Bills. I mean, the Bills might have the best roster top to bottom in the AFC right now. Like with some of the moves they've made this episode, like bringing in Von Miller, amongst other moves that they made. I mean, that team, the Bills to me should be the favorites in the AFC next year. Because on the other end with the Chiefs, you're absolutely right. I think that big Patrick Mahomes contract is really starting to hurt them. And when I look at that offense, outside of Travis Kelce, who else do you trust? Do you trust McCole Hardman? Do you trust what's his name, Brian Pringle? I don't know. And like your running backs to me aren't that great. So I don't know. I think Patrick Mahomes is really going to have to elevate some of these other guys to really maintain their level of performance because he no longer has Tyreek Hill. And I think that connects. Sometimes a quarterback and receiver just have a special connection. And Mahomes and Hill were one of those special connections. Kind of like right now what we're seeing with like an Allen and Diggs. So it's going to be a very interesting season for the Chiefs. And I think, in a way, that's actually a question I want to pick them for the AFC West, especially with all the other talent that's in that division.
Yeah, I especially and the question is where Baker Mayfield is going to land. I feel like there's a great question. Is it going to be a backup quarterback now? I feel like Baker Mayfield is going to be in the same territory as Mitch Trubisky, Teddy Bridgewater, and Ryan Fitzpatrick. A really good QB, and Marcus Mariota. A really good QB who can be either a transition quarterback or a really good backup. I feel like that's the category where Baker Mayfield's going to be.
Oh, absolutely. And it's really unfortunate because I really thought he had star potential, especially in his rookie season. Remember, he set the rookie record for touchdown passes. But it just, unfortunately, he just hasn't really been able to adapt. And things in Cleveland, I think, got really toxic for him down the stretch. So maybe a new spot will give him some clarity. But speaking of, quarterbacks going to random places, how about Matt Ryan to Indianapolis? This is the third straight offseason that the Colts have gotten a new quarterback. 2 years ago they've got trying to think. They got Philip Rivers 2 years ago. Last year they went out and got Carson Wentz. Neither one of those really worked out for them. I mean, Philip Rivers did get them to the playoffs as a 7 seed, and Carson Wentz came up short in the last game against Jacksonville Jaguars to miss the playoffs. But obviously the Titans um, took care of business both of those years and beat them to win the AFC South. And I think right now, if you're the Colts, that's your main goal. How do you get back past the Titans? You got to get a QB, and Matt Ryan to me is their best QB since Andrew Luck. Now, how good is Matt Ryan still? Because I don't think he's still that MVP type QB that he was back in 2016, but I
But
still
the
think he's pretty good.
but the question is, you know, with this Colts move, what are they trying to achieve? I feel like they look around the league. They saw Tom Brady, look washed up in New England, came there, boom, year one, Super Bowl. Matthew Stafford, look done in Detroit. The Rams got him, boom, Super Bowl. Do you think maybe Jim Irsay, you know, and the Colts front office, they they and you mentioned Philip Rivers, who I feel like was a really good quarterback, but it was in his last year of his career and took the Colts to the playoffs, and they, with this trade, they saw Matt Ryan as the quarterback who finally are gonna make them AFC contenders.
Yeah, because I mean, they still don't have a great receiving core. Now you got Jonathan Taylor, who's one of the best running backs. Colts fans will tell you he's the best. I still got to see him completely outdo Derrick Henry, but hey, that's a discussion for another day. Shout out to my friend Jason. But I because here's the thing, the Colts defense is still pretty good. Like I don't think they're elite, but they're really good. I think the Titans defense is still a little bit better, especially in the front seven. The Colts do have a better secondary, so they're probably about a wash between Ryan Tannehill and Matt Ryan right now. And obviously, I'm not the biggest fan of Ryan Tannehill right now. He kind of ruined the entire the season. Didn't play well against the Bengals. But if you've looked at the way he's played in the regular seasons, the past couple of seasons, he's outplayed Matt Ryan in the regular season. He especially against like the Colts, like he's played really well against the Indianapolis Colts the last couple of matches against them. I don't know. I think it's much closer than some people will have you believe between Matt Ryan and Ryan Tannehill.
I feel like Matt Ryan right now is the best quarterback in the AFC South.
Yes, I will. I think by a slight though. I don't think it's like a massive
I mean,
advantage. I
he
don't, I don't.
got.
I don't think he's like in a different. Now, obviously, prime Matt Ryan, yes, was in a different league than Ryan Tannehill. But I don't think Matt Ryan's in prime territory anymore. He's on the downside of his career, and I think Ryan Tannehill right now is probably at the peak. And obviously, peak Ryan Tannehill is nowhere close to peak Matt Ryan. And then this is peak Matt Ryan. This is peak Ryan Tannehill. I think Matt Ryan's more like right here right now. So that's just kind of how I feel on that. I don't think this guarantees anything for the Colts, and certainly neither one of these teams to me are Super Bowl contenders right now.
Yeah, yeah, I feel like that's a good point. I still, Matt Ryan won an MVP. He took the Falcons to the Super Bowl. He's still giving impressive numbers. And what probably made Matt Ryan more inclined to this trade, I feel like, was the lack of talent. Julia Jones left, Kyle Ridley got suspended, so he wanted to go to a team who can give him weapons.
Well, I mean, outside of Jonathan Taylor, the best weapon on the Colts is Michael Pittman Jr. Michael Pittman Jr. is a really good young receiver, but that's not elite. I mean, that's not Calvin Ridley or Julio Jones out there. So, I mean, it's obviously Jonathan Taylor's the best running back he's ever worked with. So that'll be a massive help. And Matt Ryan, I think, will be able to be more of a game manager And I think in a way that's something that the Colts need. Because I've been talking a lot to some of my friends who are Colts fans, and one of the things they constantly say is that Carson Wentz last year, he was really, really good when he was a game manager, but the times where he tried to play hero ball is when they failed, especially at the end against Jacksonville. That's when they failed. Is when Carson Wentz decided he wanted to play hero ball, and
Yeah,
I think Matt Ryan will be much smarter than that because obviously he's a veteran. Uh, but at the end of the day, part of me almost feels like debating who wins the AFC South is moot because I just feel like you're going to get the 4 seed and then lose to a much more talented AFC North or West team in the second in the wild card. But on the other hand, I'm wondering if the amount of talent, the amount of teams in the AFC West and AFC North, they're going to kind of knock each other out. And it gives a path maybe for both the Titans and the Colts to make the playoffs because you get 4 games each against the Jaguars and the Texans. You win all 4 of those games. Those are 4 games that these other teams don't get. Um, and I think that might help them in terms of standings at the end of the season.
yeah, for sure. I feel like you know, again, it'd be a good asset, but at the end of the day, I feel you know AFC is loaded with talent. Another quarterback went to the NFC to the AFC.
Yeah.
The NFC looks like a open field for. That's why Tom Brady came back.
Yeah.
Tom
I
Brady,
mean,
this trading decision made Tom Brady's decision even more valid because now Tom Brady is the best quarterback of his division by a lightning mile.
whoa. Matthew Stafford's on this level. Aaron
No,
Rodgers is still on this level.
division. I said
Oh,
division.
in his division, yeah, his division. Oh, yeah, absolutely in his division. I mean,
Yeah,
who's
his
even the
division.
second best quarterback in the NFC South right now? I
Yeah,
mean,
the South.
Marcus Mariota right now. I mean, Taysom Hill. I mean,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, in the NFC South, Tom Brady now is the best quarterback by, by a lot.
oh, absolutely in his division. Now in the entire conference, I mean, you still got
Sorry,
Aaron
the
Rodgers and
conference.
you still got Matthew
Sorry,
Stafford.
yeah,
And
entire conference. I mean, you have Aaron Rodgers and Matthew Stafford who can really give Brady trouble. More Matthew Stafford than Rodgers. I feel like Rodgers they haven't shown he can beat Brady. Look at 2020.
oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, Aaron Rodgers can't be the San Francisco 49ers. And I'm still waiting to see what happens with Jimmy Garoppolo as well, where he goes. If he's still, or even if he just stays in San Francisco, I'm starting to think that's more of a possibility too. So it's going to be
Or,
a very interesting.
or he comes to the AFC, maybe the Patriots.
No, the Patriots like Mac Jones. They're going to stick with Mac Jones. I'm trying to think what teams would even want him in the AFC. I mean, the Panthers still need a quarterback. And that's why I'm so surprised they turned down Baker Mayfield. So maybe they'll go after Jimmy Garoppolo. But obviously the draft's coming soon, so I'm very curious to see how this unfolds in the context of the draft, and it's going to be very exciting. And I do kind of want to announce too, before we move on to the next topic, that the Interview podcast will be back tomorrow night.
Oh,
We were supposed to do Monday night, but something came up, so we
oh,
weren't able to do
I
it.
was waiting to watch. I was waiting to
Yeah,
watch.
yeah, kind of we had to cancel it last minute, but we'll be doing it tomorrow, and we'll be going all in on all the NFL moves across the league and getting you ready for the NFL draft at the end of April.
I will be watching the replay live. Probably won't because I'll be broadcasting a big game that I'll talk about later in the Brazilian topics.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So now let's dive into March Madness, and for my boys, it ended in heartbreak uh, on Saturday against the Michigan Wolverines, 76-68. Um, also ended in a heartbreak for my hometown team, the Chattanooga Mocs, losing to the Illinois Final Illini 54-53. It's just a product of March Madness. Someone has to lose in heartbreaking fashion. A lot of teams lose in heartbreaking fashion. in March, and unfortunately, it was the our teams once again that had to. And it really, the thing that ended Tennessee was a scoring drought at the worst possible time. In the last 8 minutes of the game, the Vols scored 8 points. Meanwhile, Michigan scored 22. So Michigan went on a 22-8 run in the last 8 minutes, and the Vols were 2 of 20 from the 3 point line. Just you can't do that if you want to win a national title with these one-off game formats. So obviously a very disappointing end to the season for the Vols. And I'm going to talk about just a little bit later about what I think that should mean for their whole season. Because I'm still proud of their season, right? Because that team came a long way. They won the SEC tournament, and I think they have a lot of potential moving forward, especially if Kenny Chandler potentially were to come back. But still, I feel like it really stings, because it's like this team got so much better. You're building up to March, and now it was time for it to pay off, and it didn't again. And the Vols are going to go into another season where they're the best program in America that's never made the Final Four.
Yeah, I mean, I was worried about this matchup against Michigan. Michigan is a very solid program. They had a really, you know, tough Big Ten, conference and Big Ten tournament. So, and Rick Barnes, he is looking like the coach who is not a very playoff coach. Of course, he won the SEC tournament, was in the playoff mode, but in the tournament itself, where it matters, that's what college basketball lives for. He still has not, give made it, took Tennessee to the promised land. This year was better than last year. Last year he was eliminated in the first round. This year he made it to the second round, but at some point, you know, Tennessee fans expected to make it to the Final Four. I feel like, as you mentioned, Tennessee is the biggest program who never made it a Final Four.
Yeah, I mean, he's only made one Final Four ever. So, I mean, it's pretty clear he's never been a great tournament coach. Although, to me, this really wasn't on him. I didn't really disagree with any of the lineups he ever put out there. They just couldn't hit shots. And it was just, I don't know. I don't know how you avoid those scoring droughts because that's always been a part of this Rick Barnes offense. It's the scoring droughts. As pretty as it can be at times. I don't know how you avoid it because as long as this still remains a feature of this team, it's just always gonna be the death of the team. And no matter where it's in the first round, the second round, Sweet 16, Elite Eight, wherever. If Tennessee's ever going to win a national title, you can't consistently go on 10-minute spurts where you struggle to score any points. Like that's always going to kill you in college basketball. And Tennessee has got to get someone who can manufacture buckets and get you out of that situation. Um, like Michigan, like whenever they needed something, they went to Hunter Dickinson, and he was able to provide the entire game, and that's why they won because of Hunter Dickinson. And Tennessee really just didn't have a guy like that at the end. I mean, Kenny Chandler was amazing throughout the majority of the game, but let's be honest, he didn't really provide what we needed at the end. I mean, Santiago Vescovi was horrible on Saturday after being amazing against Logwood on Thursday. So it's I don't know. I mean, because I feel just really sad for them because I mean they put in so much work, they put in so much tenacity, and that team played super hard the entire season. It wasn't an effort thing; just the ball didn't go down the hole, and I don't know how you fix that outside of just getting better at shooting. But that just feels so like it's like an empty solution to the problem because it's much more complicated than just getting the ball down the hole. I do feel like they need to get better on the front court. Obviously, Brandon Huntley Hatfield and Jonas Idu, they're freshmen. I think they've got a lot of time to bulk up and to really be able to handle some of these big centers. Because, really, both Chattanooga and Tennessee got knocked out by big Big Ten centers. Michigan with Hunter Dickinson, and Illinois with Kofi Cockburn. Um, so it's yeah, just it was a very heartbreaking back-to-back days. At least the Lady Vols are in the Sweet 16. Barely though, like they almost got upset by Belmont on their home court, which would have been an embarrassing loss for them. But they are still dancing and now are going to be major underdogs inside to Louisville.
Yeah, congratulations to Kelly Harper. I covered the Lady Vols for when I was at WGK, and I saw the hard transition from uh, Holick Warlick to Kelly Harper, and they made it back to the Sweet 16. Congratulations! And speaking to the tournament, I call it watch for North Carolina, and
Mm-hmm.
they are in the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I had them
Watch.
in my Final Four too, and that didn't surprise me at all. This team is great offensively. They can score from anywhere.
I mean, this if that and it looks like the Final Four would have been if North Carolina and Duke made it to the Final Four. That's going to be the matchup. What a matchup for the ages.
Yeah, I know. You know the NCAA and TBS are praying for UNC Duke in the Final Four.
They're like doing all the voodoo, all the more like praying and hoping. They are just uh, they'll be ecstatic if that happens.
Yeah, but I think it's going to be really hard for Duke to do it because they got to go through Gonzaga. So, as you can see here, we're going to go through the bracket. So let's start with the West. So we're going to have Gonzaga and Arkansas. Arkansas did not look great last weekend, but you got to give them credit. They're the only SEC team left, which that in its own self kind of humbling because I thought the SEC was the best conference this year, but clearly I was perhaps wrong about that. You know, because SC did not perform here in crunch time whatsoever. And it looks like the Big 12 or Big 10 is still it was the best conference this year. But Gonzaga, Arkansas, Gonzaga's going to be the big favorites here. Um, Arkansas is going to have to be able to keep up with Gonzaga, and I think they have the talent to do so. But I just think Gonzaga is going to be slightly better than them. Additionally, you've got Texas Tech and Duke, and I'll say this: as much as the executives are hoping for Duke Gonzaga and Duke UNC, I think Texas Tech is going to win. I really think Texas Tech. When you take a look at what they have, Mark Adams, that defense is insane. They are big, they're athletic, their offense can go out and get buckets. I mean, the Duke's offense to me is better, but I think Texas Tech's defense is way better than Duke's defense. Give me the Red Raiders. So in the West, I like Gonzaga and Texas Tech to reach the Elite Eight. And in that game, I am actually going to go with Texas Tech. I think their athleticism is going to really give both Duke and Gonzaga a hard time, and they're going to make their second Final Four in 3 years.
I mean, give me Gonzaga and Duke, and then I put Duke in the Final Four, and then I feel like it's gonna be North Carolina and St. Peter's. I don't know. I have a feeling that St. Peter, but then the Cinderella story is over, and then UNC makes to the Final Four.
Ooh, yeah. So let's go back down to the East. So got UNC, UCLA. I mean, UCLA is trying to avenge a heartbreaker last year in the Final Four, but um, I think UNC right now is just really hot. I mean, their team is on fire. And then I'll say this: UCLA's win over St. Mary's was very impressive. But I think UNC is more talented, slightly more talented, and I think that'll be an amazing game. But UNC, I think, will move on to the Elite Eight. I unfortunately think St. Peter's Cinderella run comes to an end against Purdue, and then because Purdue has one of the best offenses in the entire country, so they're going to be able to outduel, I think, St. Peter's, which has a really good offense of their own. But I think North Carolina's offense is going to outduel Purdue's offense, and Purdue's defense, I think it's going to be their downfall. But let's kind of while we're in this region, you called this last week with Kentucky. You said if Kentucky were to lose, what should be the fate of Coach John Calipari? A lot of Kentucky fans want him fired now. Like this is a devastating loss for John Calipari, in my opinion, because I don't think he's gonna get fired this year. But if he doesn't get back to the Final Four for the next 2 to 3 years, I think it's gonna be the beginning of the end.
I mean, that was embarrassing. That was, you know, on a 15 seed. Of course, credit to St. Peter's. They also knock off Murray State, so I feel like it showed they are not a one game kind of Cinderella. They made it to the Sweet 16. A lot of big, you mentioned the Vols. Them all could have made it. St. Peter's did, beating a number 2 and a number 7 seed, the highest seed in the bracket that he could have possibly faced. But John Calipari is just one of those coaches that he, of course, won a title in Kentucky. He is a legend, but he's just kind of getting outdated. And I feel like his tenure is, he should be looking around the league. Coach K, Roy, uh, UNC former head coach,
Which coach?
the UNC. He
Uh, well,
retired.
well, Roy Williams was the last coach.
Roy Williams. He
Yeah.
looked like Coach K. Roy Williams. All the legendary coaches in generation retiring. Maybe he should, think about it and plan his retirement. Because I feel like Kentucky in the last couple of years is kind of like losing to the Vols, and you know, because Kentucky always pride to be, you know, we're not good at football, but we're gonna, destroy Tennessee in basketball. That's not happening anymore. So I feel like Kentucky fans pride themselves to be a basketball school, but they're not winning any SEC titles. They're not getting any closer to a Final Four. So why do they should be proud of?
Yeah, I mean, well, Kentucky still had a really good team this year, and obviously Oscar Tshiebwe had an incredible season. Probably one of Kentucky's best players since the days of having Anthony Davis and Michael Kidd Gilchrist and those types of talents. But at Kentucky they expect Final Fours, and if you lose to St. Peter's in the first round, that's going to really infuriate that fan base. So it's as I said, he's going to have to make some staff changes this offseason. And of course, Kenny Payne left to go to Louisville to be their new head coach. So he's already having to replace that guy anyway. I'd get some younger assistants, try to get some more advanced concepts, and really just try to regulate yourself more to being the CEO, the marketer, because John Calipari is one of the best recruiters in all of college basketball. But I think he's proven time and time again that he's not one of the best coaches. Because time and time again, he gets out coached. Like Rick Barnes owns them. Like Rick Barnes is 10-7 in the last 17 games against John Calipari. Kentucky, I'm trying to think, their last regular season SEC title was like 2018, something like that. Like they're no longer run this conference. Like Bruce Pearl is out coaching him. Rick Barnes is out coaching him. Nate Oates is out coaching him. So it's going to be very interesting to see because Kentucky, I think, is in danger of falling off a little bit if they don't make some changes soon.
Yeah, and as I mentioned before, it's UNC and Duke, their head coaches, you know, re, one already retired and another one is going to retire by the end of this year. And Kentucky is on the blue bloods, and maybe she should think about talking with Calipari about set a retirement plan or maybe move off him because right now those legendary programs already change head coaches.
I'll say this: Calipari does have a lifetime contract, so they're not. It would. I think they would have to pay like $60 million for him to leave.
That's the thing. I can't believe who signed up a lifetime contract with a head coach.
I know that's. I never understood that. Because I think Michigan did the same thing with Jim Harbaugh, which never made. It really didn't make sense because he hadn't even been in Ohio State at the time that he got it. It just makes it way more expensive to lose him. So it's really, really dumb. Bro, let's
But
move
by
on to the. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say my predictions are. I think I mentioned UNC, St. Peter's, and UNC makes the Final Four.
So you go with UNC Duke in the Final Four. I'm going with Texas Tech and UNC in the Final Four, at least on that side. So let's figure out on the other side. So in the South, we've got Arizona and Houston. Houston's playing really, really well right now. They're proving that their top five net ranking was not a fluke. I kind of thought it was, to be honest, 'cause they didn't really play a lot of great teams throughout the season, but they clearly, are proving that the metrics were right. They are a top 5, 10 caliber team. However, Arizona, um, and despite them not playing their best ball right now, Benedict Mathrone might be the best player in this tournament left. Like he kind of willed them past TCU the other night, and I think he's going to will them past Houston. I like Arizona in that game. Michigan Villanova. Now this one is tricky because I think the best player on the court in this game is going to be Hunter Dickinson for Michigan. But I think Villanova overall is a better coach team. I think they have a more solid plan. I like Villanova to get past Michigan. Setting up Arizona and Villanova in the Elite Eight here. Um, I'm gonna be honest. As good as Arizona is with Benedict Mathurin, I think Jay Wright and Villanova, um, they're just one of the best programs to depend on in the NCAA tournament. Yeah, Jay Wright is probably might be the best coach in all of college basketball, for being honest. For ourselves, like what he's been able to accomplish with Villanova is really impressive. And I think they're setting up really nicely here for another Final Four. Give me a Villanova out of that region.
Give me Arizona and Villanova as well.
All right, and who do you like in that game? Arizona Villanova.
Ooh, give me Villanova. It's gonna be really blue blood kind of Final Four for me. So Duke, UNC, and Villanova in
Okay.
my Final Four.
All right, so let's figure out our last bracket here. So we got Kansas and Providence. Now, Providence, I have no faith in going into this tournament whatsoever. I thought, when you take a look at their schedule, they avoid some of the best teams in their schedule. They kind of were able to kind of lick their way into the Big East regular season title. I thought they were going to get upset first round, but give them credit, they're playing really well. And Kansas, they kind of had to outlast Creighton the other night to get to this point. And obviously, I think Kansas is a far better opponent than Providence, the more talented. But I just have a feeling that sometimes I feel like there's always one team like this in March Madness that I seriously doubt heading in that goes on a big run, and I didn't see coming. And I'm starting to feel like Providence is that team for me. I'm going to go with the upset here. Give me Providence to upset Kansas in the Midwest. And then down here at the bottom, I mean, talk about Auburn, kind of disappointing. And like they got blown out. That wasn't even close with Miami. And honestly, I kind of saw it coming with Auburn because they really have been struggling down the stretch. Their guard play was just not very good, for being honest. But still, for all the success they had all season, I think if you're an Auburn fan, it's got to be really disappointing because it's going to be one of your best teams ever. Because Auburn's not a blue blood. They're just not going to have teams like this every year. So we'll see if they're able to get a team just as good as this moving forward, especially now that they're losing Jabari Smith, who's probably going to be a top 3 pick in the NBA. But Iowa State, they obviously had 2 really good wins over LSU and Wisconsin. Miami, 2 really good wins over USC and Auburn. This one's really hard. But I do think Miami's the better team. Jim Larenga has been a very good coach for a while down there at Miami. And I think this is time to make that Elite Eight run. I like Miami to win this game. Set up a Miami Providence Elite Eight, which would be just absolutely insane because I don't know if anyone had that predicted. I'm going to go with Providence to the Final Four. The Friars, Rhode Island, go nuts. You to me will be in the Final Four, which sets up a Providence and Villanova, all Big East semifinal in the Final Four.
For me, it's gonna be the total opposite. Kentucky and Kansas, Iowa State, a Big 12 showdown, and then Kansas in the Final Four. It's going to be a true blue blood Final Four. Duke, UNC, Villanova, and Kansas.
So for me, I have Texas Tech versus Duke, and I have Villanova versus Providence. And just off the top of my head right now, I would say um, Texas Tech and Villanova in the national title game. I probably would pick Villanova to win it all right now.
Well, on the top of my head, too, I'll go uh, Kansas and Duke. And then I feel like Kansas to win it all.
Oh wow, gonna deny Coach K a championship in his final game. That would be. I think if honestly if Duke makes it that far, I kind of at that point just want to see Coach K win it all, just to send a legend out on top. But um, I do kind of also want to look briefly at the women's bracket if you want to pull it up real quick, and we'll figure out who's going to go to the Sweet 16 because there's also been some upsets on the women's side of things. Baylor, for example, lost to South Dakota. I mean, that was a pretty shocking loss. Belmont almost went on a run to the Sweet 16. UConn got taken to the brink the other night against UCF. So this women's tournament has been very, very competitive this year. So we'll start off in the Greensboro region. We have South Carolina, North Carolina. South Carolina's defense is unbelievable. I mean, did you see what the halftime score was at the South Carolina Howard game?
Only 4 points.
Yeah, 44-4 was the score. They held Miami to 33. Um, if you're gonna beat South Carolina, you better be able to get some offense generated because South Carolina's defense is unreal. Now, South Carolina's offense, on the other hand, it's to me not that great. Um, but I don't think UNC has that firepower to overcome that defense. So the Battle of Carolinas, give me South Carolina on the top. On the bottom, we have Iowa State. They were able to really dominate Georgia. I mean, and that's what was kind of surprising because I had picked Georgia to win in that region, but Iowa State really proven how good they were. And then this one really actually kind of saddens me because Caitlin Clark is one of my favorite players in the women's game. But Creighton, the player that won them the game was actually a transfer from Iowa. Um, she didn't get a lot of playing time with the Hawkeyes, so she transferred over to Creighton and then came back to Iowa City to hit a game winner, with just an unbelievable story. Which sets up Iowa State and Creighton, but I think Iowa State's going to win, and I think South Carolina, I think, is going to kind of go to the Final Four with ease because Iowa, like Caitlin Clark, was the type of player that could overcome that South Carolina defense. But unfortunately, when you look at the Iowa roster, she just didn't have a lot of help otherwise. And I think that's what doomed the Hawkeyes.
Yeah, yeah. For me, in give me South Carolina and Iowa State, and then on the bottom, give me Louisville and Michigan.
Yeah, I agree with you on the bottom. As much as I want to pick the Lady Vols to win over Louisville, I I just right now the
Oh,
rebounding against Belmont.
Vols. Yeah, so give me the Vols. Vols in Michigan, and then it'll be the revenge on the men's side, and then the Lady Vols to the Final Four.
I
Oh
hope
my
you're
God!
right.
What's gonna be Jason's decision?
He's rooting for Louisville, which I mean it's his alma mater. I get it. I'm not going to begrudge him for it, but I know he's going to be in pure agony on Saturday, watching Louisville and Tennessee. Say, it was my nightmare scenario. Like if Chattanooga and Tennessee were to play in the tournament, that would be a nightmare scenario for me. Um, so I don't envy that situation at all for Jason having to choose between his alma mater and his graduate school to root for. But I do think that Louisville is they're a far better team right now. They got a much better offense. Jeff Waltz is one of the best coaches in all the country. Kelly Harper is a really good coach in herself. Uh, but I think with some of the injuries that have occurred this year, you just tell the Lady Vols aren't the same team they were 2 months ago. The defense isn't as good as it was for the Lady Vols that it was early in the season. And if Sarah Puckett, the freshman, hadn't hit a shot in the corner with 15 seconds left, Belmont would have beaten them. And that's, you know, hey, and the name of the game is survive and advance, right? But I don't see them being Louisville. But I hope I'm wrong. I'd be ecstatic if they were able to. But certainly they're the underdogs heading into Wichita, which is such a random place to have a tournament game. Anyway, I've never been to Wichita, Kansas. And then South Dakota, obviously they are a Cinderella team. But at Michigan with Nash Hillman, that Michigan team is really, really good. And I think they're going to win that game with relative ease, setting up a Michigan and a Louisville Elite Eight. And give me Louisville. I think Louisville will make the Final Four. I just think with Haley Van Lith, she's electric. She's one of the best players in the country. Some of their pieces they have, I like Louisville. So you have Tennessee, South Carolina, which would be an all SEC Final Four. I have Louisville and South Carolina on this side of the bracket.
So my final four will be uh, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, and Yukon.
For me, I'm actually so on the Bridgeport. I'm going to go with Notre Dame over NC State. Notre Dame absolutely eviscerated Oklahoma on Monday, 108-64. Connecticut's really struggling. Like the UCF gave them everything that they had to handle. I think they'll be Indiana in Sweet 16. But give me Notre Dame over Connecticut in the Elite Eight. I've got Notre Dame in the Elite Eight or in the Final Four. And then if we scroll back up to the top, I like Texas and Stanford in the Elite Eight, and give me Stanford. So I've got 3 1 seeds in Notre Dame. And off the top of my head, I would take South Carolina over Louisville, and I would take Notre Dame over Stanford. And I think South Carolina to win the national title.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting Final Four on the women's side as well in Minnesota.
Hey, but go Lady Vols though. I hope you're right, and I hope they upset Louisville and get the Lady Vols back to where they belong in the Final Four, because it's been since 2008 since the Lady Vols went to that promised land. But speaking of Tennessee, have you seen that Tennessee football is back, Gus?
Yeah, there's
Five-star quarterback Nico Imalavelia from California has officially committed to the Vols. Rumor has it that he signed an $8 million NIL deal with Spire, which is a company that operates around Tennessee. And obviously, they'll be doing commercials and stuff. But this is really interesting because now the bidding wars have begun. And it's going to be interesting to see which schools have the war chest to buy some of these players and which ones don't. And obviously, as a Tennessee fan, I'm glad to find out we have the war chest to do this. But I don't know if this is a good thing moving forward. I think
all
that's
about the
going to
boosters.
be
The
screwed.
boosters gonna have more power now because
Oh, absolutely.
they can use their companies to get players directly without any violation.
I know. I mean, it's the Wild West, and I'm very curious to see if we're gonna have a salary cap instituted at some point, because it's at some point it's just gonna make things more unfair than they are right now. But hopefully, at least for the case of Tennessee, maybe this is our opportunity to get the program back to where it used to be, because Tennessee, there's a lot of big time donors, a lot of big time money floating around, and they're going to be able to attract some big talent to Rocky Top.
Yeah, and their spring training already started. Spring practice. I will said because last year I covered all spring ball, so this year I won't be there. But it was
Yeah.
nice to see Josh Hypo, back back on the field, and
Mm-hmm.
with especially some very exciting news.
Yeah, but there's no spring game though, because Neyland Stadium is currently under renovation. If you walk around in Knoxville, you can see some holes in the stadium. I saw that a couple weeks ago when I went up there to go to the Arkansas Tennessee basketball game. But hey, I'm excited to see what Neyland looks like this upcoming football season when they kick off
You
against
know
Ball
what
State.
that something scares me though, right?
What scares you?
The last two times the orange and white game did not happen or did not happen in its entirety, the coach got fired.
You're right.
20, 2017, I remember I was there. The orange and white game had to it ended up in the halftime or even before that because of a tornado warning in the rain. And then Butch Jones got fired. 2020, no spring game because of COVID, and then Jeremy Pruitt got fired. So I just hope this trend does not continue.
Yeah, let's knock on wood. Let's hope it doesn't because I didn't even think about that. But yeah, that is true. Did the 2012 spring game happen? I'm trying to think with Derek Dooley. I, that's way that's a long time ago. I don't know if it happened or not, but yeah, that is a disconcerting trend for Tennessee. But regardless, Nico Amavella won't be here this year. This will be Hendon Hooker's team, and then I guess we'll be starting the Nico era at 2023. There's a lot of he's got I think three elite wide receivers he wants to come with him to Tennessee. So Josh Heupel is going to have a lot of weapons to work with in the future. This offense is going to be elite. Um, only thing is now you got to get a defense. And obviously with the pace of play, I don't think you're going to be able to get like the best defense ever with this team. But can you get just a good enough defense? Like if this offense is averaging 40, 45 points a game, can you get a defense that like holds teams to like 20, 25 points a game? I think that has to be the goal for Tennessee. If you can have just a decent defense, you're going to win a lot of football games in the years to come. Because I don't think you need you don't need a Georgia defense. You can get away, I think, with an average defense. Um, but obviously, last year was not an average defense; it was a bad defense, and they outplayed their expectations. I think a lot of the time, but they still weren't very good. So I think that is what Tennessee has to focus on. If you can elevate that defense enough, then I think you're going to be good to go in terms of winning football games. But anyway, so two more things to kind of bring up here in the American topic. So one thing I want to kind of briefly bring up here. So NASCAR went to the Atlanta Super Speedway. It's now the Atlanta Super Speedway, not the Atlanta Motor Speedway, because they did some reconfiguration over the off season, and they introduced pack racing to this track. So if you're familiar with NASCAR, Daytona and Talladega, the two largest tracks on the schedule, at least the largest ovals. They're so big that NASCAR has them run, well, they're called tapered spaces, but they used to be restrictor plates because they don't want the drivers going so fast because they're afraid that it's a safety hazard. Because in the 80s, the cars were going like 230 at Talladega, and Bobby Allison blew a tire and almost flew into the grandstands. So it's more of a safety thing. But I think in a way, NASCAR is trying to get more pack racing and other tracks for entertainment purposes. Now, this race was pretty entertaining. Like the cars were always very close together. There's a lot of interesting runs. Of course, there's a lot of wrecks. But I mean, is it the best style of racing though? I don't know, especially when you compare it to something like F1. F1 started in Bahrain on Sunday, and that's a pure motorsport. Like strategy and trying to have the best equipment. It's I think pack racing is a little cheap when it comes to that. I would like to see the drivers have to like actually fight each other like with their proper equipment instead of being stuck together in a pack race. But let's just hope that Atlanta is a unique track and they don't try this with other mile-and-a-half tracks because I think that would be a mistake and would kind of compromise the quality of NASCAR somewhat moving forward. But anyway,
Yeah,
Gus, there are two MLS teams in the CONCACAF Champions League semifinal. I know you've been talking about this for weeks. How close is America to finally get into the Champions League?
but yeah, it's the FIFA Club World Cup. Yes, I'm so excited. It's going to be the West versus the East. The current MLS champions, New York City FC, versus the champions in 2021, the Seattle Sounders. So I think it's going to be a matchup for the ages. The first game is going to be on April 6th at Lumen Field, the home of the Seattle Seahawks. And then on April 13th, on Wednesday, at the Red Bull Arena, the home of the New York Red Bulls, because Yankee Stadium is not approved by the CONCACAF to host the game. It's going to be the decisive matchup. The winner is going to be facing a Mexican team, either Cruz Azul or Pumas. So it's going to be a U.S. versus Mexico game in the CONCACAF Champions League final, which is going to take place April 26th and May 5th. I'm really rooting for US. New York City is 4 games away to have, a big champions and finally play for world champions. As much as you can say, if New York City FC win this game, they are going to be the most successful team in New York in the last decade. That's for sure. I know the traditionalists, sports journalists in America, you know, it said, for example, I follow the Yes Network, which kind of broadcasts New York City FC. You don't see Michael Kay and other New York journalists, talking about this historical moment of New York City FC. They're close to winning a CONCACAF Champions League in Brazil. In Brazil, this would have been a huge deal. This would have been like the talk of the country. I know New York still is a baseball and basketball town, even though their 4 teams have not been come close to getting into, World Series or NBA Finals. But you know, New York City FC already won the MLS Cup. They're close to winning the CONCACAF Champions League. How much success can this be? For a team who does not even have their own stadium, but they got it right. They got really young talent, especially Brazilian talent. They got another one with Thiago. Now they have Thales Magno, Castellanos. Palmeiras wanted him really bad. He wouldn't leave. So it's going to be an interesting matchup, in April between Seattle and New York. I know in the Super Bowl, only if the Jets and the Seahawks would have faced, right?
Man, that would be a insane match. I feel like it'd be more likely to see the Giants and Seahawks like the NFC title game, at least like
Yeah,
10
there's
years
a
ago.
kind of big comparison. Yeah, because, that's kind of like a conference title. So it's like the Giants and the Seahawks in a conference title.
I mean, I guess you could get the Seattle Kraken versus like the New York Rangers now. Um, unfortunately, you don't have an NBA team. Well, I'm trying to like the Mariners versus
The
the
Yankees,
Mets.
more the Yankees, because
Yeah,
even the Yankees are the owners of the New York City FC.
yeah. The poor Seattle Mariners. So they just got to get back to the playoffs. I mean, the last time the Seattle Mariners were in the playoffs, 2001. It's been
Wow,
a long time. They're like one of the worst droughts in all professional sports. Worse than even
wow.
the Sacramento Kings.
Also, another thing that is back is the U.S. Open Cup. I love the U.S. Open Cup. I know probably a lot of Americans don't know what I'm talking about. Is the FA Cup of United States, where local teams can go all the way to play the MLS teams for a title. Of course, the last 2 years did not happen. It's back this year. I wonder if I think there was a Nashville team, not only, of course, Nashville SC. I think there was a Nashville team,
Didn't the
but
Chattanooga FC do this one year? Because I know they went to go play the New York Red Bulls, like B team.
yeah, 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 they did that. Yeah, the Chattanooga went, I think, to the. I'm gonna research when this happened, but I think, yeah, you're right.
Because I remember watching this on TV because that was a big deal here when that was going on.
And they're gonna face Memphis 901 on April 7th for the U.S. Open Cup as well.
Yeah, I got to really get to some Chattanooga FC games at some point. You know, it's I've heard they are a lot of fun.
Oh, they're a huge fan base. I mean, I've been
Yeah,
to 2 Chattanooga FC games. I went to their friendly versus Atlanta United, the first ever Atlanta United game, and then versus Real Betis. I mean, the fan base was erotic, and it was funny when they came to play in Knoxville back in the summer 2018. Yeah, summer 2018 was 5-0 Chattanooga, and the Chattanooga fans came out strong. I think you remember San Song Sports Complex downtown Knoxville that was
Mhm.
filled with Chattanooga fans, and it was on a
Oh yeah.
Wednesday night game.
I think one thing I want to see at some point is Chattanooga FC versus Chattanooga Red Bulls because those two fan bases hate each other. For two teams that are relatively new in the grand scheme of things, it is pretty interesting to see. So I definitely got to go to a derby at some point if
Oh yeah,
they ever play.
please. Yeah, I
The
yeah I
4-2 free derby. No, Scenic City Derby. That's what we should call it.
yeah it's gonna be. It kind of looked like the derby here between Rio Branco and Union Barbarense. It's like I love this kind of games. That makes the city different. I
Oh,
feel like.
absolutely. Especially for a city like Chattanooga, with a lot of sports fans anyway. It's certainly good to have. But I know you have a lot of soccer games too to discuss down in Brazil as well.
Yes, finally state tournaments playoff times down here in Sao Paulo. It's quarterfinals on yesterday. Sao Paulo was a little bit in trouble, was losing 1-0, but then in the last 15 minutes, they scored four times, defeated São Bernardo 4-1. They are already in the semifinals. They wait the other three teams, which is going to be decided today and tomorrow. First game today is Red Bull Bragantino versus Santo André, currently tied 0-0. And then later, Palmeiras and Ituano. Palmeiras undefeated. I think they're going to probably beat easily. I think the only upset, I think, is going to be Santo Andre beating Bragantino. I have a feeling Santo Andre is such a clutch team. I went to cover their game on Saturday. They look very on their best on the season. I think that's going to be the only upset. And tomorrow, Corinthians versus Guarani. Corinthians, I was a little bit disappointed. I know they play on the reserves, but I was expecting more of them on Sunday. And and they have to win. So it's complicated, but in order for Corinthians to have the home field advantage on the semifinals, they're gonna have to win by 2 goals or more, because even though they're in the playoffs, the regular season standing still counting for home field advantage. So Sao Paulo currently have 26 points, 8 wins, and a goal differential of plus 10. Corinthians has 23 points, 7 wins, and a goal differential of 9. So it's probably going to be on goal differential who's going to be hosting this one semifinals.
Ooh, that sounds intense. I mean, and goal differentials are always insane to me, right? Because you're not even watching the scoreboard in terms of who wins or loses that game. You're okay, we can lose this game by two, but we can't lose it by three or four. That makes things so just
Yeah,
fascinating.
yeah, and so that makes the game fascinating tomorrow for Corinthians, because of course Corinthians want to advance, but if they tie the game and advance on penalty shootout, they're gonna be, playing on the road versus São Paulo. So it's a lot of uh, a lot of chances, a lot of situations that can happen.
Yeah, I think in that case you got to like go for the win in regulation because you don't want to go deal with penalty shootouts on the road like that, especially in Brazil where you have such passionate fan bases. I imagine it's really difficult to take penalty shootouts on the road.
Oh yeah, definitely. And on a playoff mode where the quarterfinals and the semifinals are one game kind of playoff, you definitely want to host, your playoff game, especially with the home team fan policy where there's no visitor fans. You definitely want to be the host of your semifinals. So I Corinthians, because and it's tricky because Guarani, of course, is going to play on the defense. They are the, they are the Cinderella story. They are the low seed, so they don't have any pressure on them. They're going to play on defense. I mean, Corinthians, of course. I think one thing Guarani is not playing good all season is on crossing on the ball on set pieces, especially when they on the crossing. A lot of goals Guarani, took was from headers. So that's one thing Corinthians definitely going to be on the lookout for it. But I think the semifinals are going to be Palmeiras versus Santo Andre and São Paulo and Corinthians. I think on and São Paulo is going to be the host on the semifinal. I think Corinthians. I don't think they're going to defeat Guarani by more than one goal. I think it's going to be on penalties. I have a feeling.
Yeah, I was saying there is that chance though for Palmeiras and Corinthians to play in the finals, which um,
Yeah, that was gonna be the that's what Hecor this year's TV the TV broadcast, they're praying for it. They are praying for it. If TBS is praying for Duke Kentucky, Duke North Carolina, Hecor is praying for Palmeiras and Corinthians because that's gonna drive up ratings so high.
absolutely. I mean, it's just um, certain matchups just are bigger than others, and like Duke, UNC, and Palmeiras Corinthians are those matchups that are just that much more
Yeah.
important.
I mean, I was last Thursday on a Palmeiras Corinthians game on a regular season. 40,000 fans, and they shout for 90 minutes nonstop. Even Palmeiras coach Abel Ferreira appraised the fans, was like, I never seen something like this, and I was impressed. So I couldn't even imagine a Palmeiras Corinthians game, on a finals with fans again, because they met in the Paulistão finals in 2020, but there were no fans.
Oh, absolutely. It's just kind of looking it up right now. It says that CNN ranks as like the eighth best rivalry in the entire world. Like
Yeah.
it's like a rivalry um that we need to that I should experience at some point.
Oh yeah. If you come to Brazil, you have to come to a Corinthians and Palmeiras game. I mean, that's a must go kind of thing. I mean, I went there last Thursday as a broadcaster. I forgot how intense this rivalry is. How much hate, you know, at the fan base have for each other. I know São Paulo and Santos are their rivals too, but the hate between Palmeiras and Corinthians are so intense that if you go to a Corinthians game wearing green, probably gonna get harassed. And if you go to a Palmeiras game wearing black, you're probably gonna get harassed.
I can only imagine what it's like at those derbies down there. That's just a special type of intensity.
Yeah, I'm hoping for a final like that too. And in the other state championship, the main ones in Rio, Flamengo made it to another final, looking for the fourth consecutive title. They look like they're gonna play Fluminense, that defeated Botafogo in the other semifinal. And in Minas Gerais, probably gonna be Cruzeiro versus Atlético Mineiro. And in you know the so that's the situation down here in the state tournaments, and looks like it's going to be big matchups. I'm excited, especially I'll be in Corinthians Stadium Thursday broadcasting Corinthians versus Guarani. I mean, I hope, it's so funny because I'm a Corinthians fan, but for me it would be better that Guarani advances because I broadcast Guarani games, so I'm very conflicted.
Oh, absolutely. I gotta root for what's best for business. And do you know if there's any American options to watch any of these games?
Ooh, I mean, unfortunately, I don't know. It's supposedly tomorrow the game gonna be broadcast on YouTube, but I only believe it's gonna be available in Brazil for YouTube. That's the of course the sucky part.
I
You
gotta
know
invest in a VPN. That's what I need to
yeah,
invest.
if you have VPN, then I probably you can watch on YouTube with image and everything. YouTube is one of the broadcasters of the Paulista Championship. I It's so funny that in America, I guess YouTube does not openly broadcast any tournament. I know they have YouTube TV that you can get like a channel like a ABC, but YouTube itself broadcasting. I know they have Major League Baseball, right?
Yeah, well, they have like a one game every week that they show. So, because I remember I watched the Braves one time or last season or the year before last on there. So, but outside of that, like there's no NFL and YouTube game. Well, NFL had a game once in YahooSport.com, so there was that, and of course the NHL has weekly games now on ESPN Plus, but that's subscription service.
Amazon has been broadcasting the Brazilian Cup as well. That was
Amazon does
tribute.
NFL too, and I
Yeah.
know that they just got Al Michaels to be their lead commentator over there for Amazon, so that's
So
going
they
to really raise that
so he
profile.
so he left NBC. Wow.
Yeah. Also, that happened, and then um,
Troy
Joe
Aikman.
Buck went to ESPN, so they're going to do Monday Night Football.
I mean, NBC and Fox, they're gonna be looking for the replacement hard.
Oh, absolutely. But hey, yeah, you got to give it up to like first of all, ESPN. They've needed like stability there for a long time. Now they finally got their guys, because their booths have kind of sucked for years. But now they finally have one of the best commentating duos, and obviously Al Michaels is one of the best commentators of all time. So, go on Amazon to get him.
Yeah. So let's move on to finalize with hot takes.
All right, let me start with mine. So I was kind of alluding to this earlier, but we should look at more than March Madness to evaluate the success of a season. I, it kind of disheartens me to hear how people are saying, no, okay, so the Vols didn't make the Sweet 16, so the season's a failure. But if we're going to do that, then why do we watch every single game from November to March? Like, why wouldn't I just start watching in March? If it doesn't actually matter, nothing that happens in November and February matters for March, then why does it matter? I think we put so much emphasis on who wins a title and who wins a championship and how far anyone goes in a playoff or a tournament that we forget the totality. This Vols team really, like, they came together as a team. Like the team that came out against Lenore Ryan to begin the season for their exhibition, and the team that left the court heartbroken against Michigan were two very different teams. They had the chemistry had improved so much. The offensive schemes had improved a lot. The defense had improved a lot. And yeah, I know it didn't end the way any of us wanted it to end, but this doesn't mean this team was a failure. This team was I think, a really big success. I mean, they won the first SC championship in the tournament since 1979. I mean, that counts for something. I've wanted to win that tournament more as much as the actual NCAA tournament. And I do think that one day this team will find a way to the Final Four. But it doesn't. I don't want to disparage this team because this team had a lot of success. Or like the teams with Admiral and Grant. Yeah, those teams didn't really go any farther than this team did. But they still were resounding successes. I mean, the 2018, 2019 Bulls basketball teams were my favorite teams of all time because of just what they, I think, gave this fan base, what they gave us. Like, is the baseball team last year a failure because they didn't win a single game in Omaha? No. I mean, the journey that they took this fan base on was incredible. And I think we got to get out of mindset as fans. And I'm not just talking about the Tennessee fans, about every fan. The success of a season should be about more than just who wins a title because only one team can win a championship. And I think, especially when it comes to March Madness, because it's such a random tournament. I mean, just because Kentucky lost to St. Peter's doesn't mean in my mind, their season is a failure. I mean, they still were a very good team. They still won a lot of games. Oscar Tshiebwe, proved himself to be one of the best players in the country. March Madness is, honestly, if we're really being honest, is a terrible way to determine a champion. Like one-off games and as random of a sport as basketball are kind of really unfair. Like one of Iowa State and Miami is going to get to go to the Elite Eight. Is that really fair? Those two teams barely got in. Then meanwhile, you have Duke and Texas Tech having to play each other. And Gonzaga and Arkansas. And all four of those teams are better, way better than Miami or Iowa State. Miami and Iowa State are also not better than Tennessee. They just got lucky with the draw. And Tennessee got very unlucky with their draw. So March Madness should not be used as anything more than, a tournament that's really fun to watch, but also can be really agonizing as well. But it should not be used, I think, to constitute its success or failure of a season. Like St. Peter's, like yes, just because St. Peter's won 2 games in March are all of a sudden better than Tennessee and Kentucky. Get real. St. Peter's was better on one day than Kentucky, and they were able to beat them. So that's kind of just my take on it. I think March Madness, as a tool to determine success, is a terrible tool, and I think really discredits the entire college basketball regular season.
I mean, that's the beauty of the playoff system, you know. And here in Brazil, they complain of the opposite. I feel like they're the push for more playoff, especially the Brazilian tournament to come back to this setup. But that's what there was the number one complaint back when it was on the playoff system because it was it kind of disproved what you did on the regular season. But I think I think in football it has the best system because the regular season is a playoff and then you have the playoffs. But it's
Right.
hard to do that on basketball where they have so many conferences and so many games.
Yeah, I don't know like how to do it better. And I also think about like NASCAR too. I think NASCAR plans are a bad idea. Like, I think the driver who drives the best over 36 races and not 10 should be the title or the champion. Which sometimes happens, but then sometimes it doesn't happen.
And my hot take is I'm very impressed by the work that Rogério Ceni is doing in São Paulo. Yesterday game, even though they were in trouble, losing 1 goal to nil, probably the opponent was playing good. He knew how to sub, where to sub. The first goal and the second goal was such a play design plays and shows how he has been the best coach in this Paulistão. Of course, Abel Ferreira, I still believe is the best coach in Brazil right now for what he accomplished. But I think Rogério Ceni, from where he started to where he is right now, I think he's the best coach in this state tournament. I mean, I feel like he has made this team more interesting, you know, and I feel like he's kind of mixing up between experienced players and young players. So that's I think his merits in getting São Paulo to another state tournament semifinal. And another point, tomorrow the mixed zone and live press conferences are back, at least in the state of Sao Paulo. I'm so excited again to speak with coaches face to face. I know in America, probably this has been back probably since last year, but in
Yeah.
Brazil, only now this is back. I'm so excited to talk to players and coaches face to face.
Yeah, I'm glad to get the opportunity. I mean, that's certainly something that we can't take for granted again because I think everyone can agree Zoom press conferences suck. Outside of the convenience factor, you definitely want to be there and kind of feel the emotion because you can't really get that through a computer screen.
Yeah, and sometimes and here in Brazil is WhatsApp press conferences where you just send it's like an audio, you send just an audio message. So you don't know, in a lot of times you don't know what the other reporters asked, or the coaches, they don't see your expression asking. So it's even harder in Brazil because at least in America where there was Zoom press conferences, the coaches could see your face or hear your voice live. In Brazil, it's recorded audio messages.
Mhm. Yeah, 'cause the one time I remember being like nervous to ask a question because I'm usually not nervous asking questions. Was Frank Martin because Frank Martin is this big, imposing, physical guy, right? Coach, he just got let go as a coach of South Carolina, and I was asking him a question. I'm just like trying to make sure I word it very carefully so it's a good question, just because I know he's this really big, like kind of intimidating guy. But I mean, but from all accounts, though, he's an awesome person.
Yeah, so I'm excited for tomorrow. So, what is your predictions? Palmeiras, Ituano, Corinthians, Guarani. So it's going to be both home teams are going to be win. Any
Yep.
upset?
I'm gonna go with both home teams, and I'm gonna roll through a Corinthians team to go all the
Oh,
way.
sounds good. Yeah. I mean, it would be interesting. I mean, Palmeiras and Corinthians in the final. Two coaches from Portugal. You know, biggest rivalry. That's what sports are for.
Oh, absolutely. That's what we love to see. We want to see it come down to big time robberies.
So that's it.
Yep,
That's
that
it
is it.
for that's it
We're
for tonight. Rock. That's it for
not rock
our.
solid sports, Gus.
Yeah, I'm so used to, but that's it for Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports, episode 21. Thank you, Nicholas Hill, always from Chattanooga, Tennessee. I'm Gus Tomazeli here in Americana, São Paulo, Brazil. Tune in for next week's episode. Have a good week.
Yeah, y'all have a good one.
Heated like a sauna, penetrating through your body armor. Rhythmically, we